She cheated on me, but what a price she paid for it. Hey everyone, I never thought I'd be the guy posting on here, but here we are. I don't even know if I'm looking for advice or just venting, but I need to get this out before I lose my mind. My wife, let's call her Sarah, and I have been married for 6 years. We've had our ups and downs, but I always thought we were solid, one of those couples that just worked, you know. I mean, we weren't perfect, but we had inside jokes, Sunday morning coffee rituals, and late night talks that made me believe we were in it for the long haul. But lately, something has been off. She started acting different. I can't even pinpoint the exact moment it began, but over the past few months, there's been this distance. At first, I thought it was stress from work. She kept saying she was tired or busy whenever I tried to initiate anything, whether it was a date night or just a simple conversation. The intimacy started disappearing, too. And when I say disappearing, I mean it straight up packed its bags and left town. Then came the phone habits. She suddenly became one of those people, always clutching her phone like it held the secrets to the universe, texting with that annoying little smirk, and flipping it face down the second I walked into the room. If I asked about it, she'd roll her eyes and say, "Oh my god, why are you so paranoid?" Or "It's just work stuff, chill." I tried to brush it off. I really did. I told myself I was overthinking. I didn't want to be the insecure, jealous husband. But my gut was screaming at me, and I've learned that when your gut speaks, you damn well better listen. I just had no idea how bad it was going to get. Alright, so like I said, my gut was telling me something was up. And man, I wish I had trusted it sooner. The first real, undeniable red flag happened about a month ago. Sarah started going out a lot more. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not the type of guy who thinks his wife should be home 24/7. We've always had our own social lives, and I never had a problem with her going out with friends. But this was different. She started dressing up way more than usual. Not just the casual, girls' night out, kind of dressed up. I'm talking hair professionally styled, makeup done like she was walking a red carpet, perfume so strong you could smell it 2 rooms away. And when I'd ask her where she was going, her answers were always so vague. Just out with some friends, she'd say, brushing me off. Who? I asked once, pretending to be casual. She rolled her eyes. You don't know them. That was the first crack. That's when the little voice in my head whispered, something is really, really wrong here. Then, one night, she told me she was going to dinner with her best friend, Lisa. Now, Lisa and I have always been cool. So, later that night, just out of curiosity, or paranoia, I texted Lisa a simple, "Hey, hope you and Sarah are having fun." And that's when my stomach dropped. Lisa replied almost immediately, "Huh? I haven't seen Sarah in weeks." I just stared at my phone, heart pounding. I read the message 3 times, hoping I was misunderstanding something. But nope. She was lying. Boldly. Blatantly. And suddenly, I realized, this wasn't just acting distant. This was something else entirely. I didn't say anything that night. I needed to think. I needed to figure out my next move. But deep down, I already knew. My wife was lying to me. And if she was lying about this, what else was she lying about? After that text from Lisa, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had spent weeks trying to convince myself that I was imagining things, that maybe I was being too suspicious. But now? Now I had proof. Sarah was lying straight to my face. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I played it cool. She came home late, around midnight, looking way too put together for someone who just had dinner with a friend. Her makeup was still fresh, hair perfect, and she had this weird energy. Almost like she was excited about something. I forced a smile. "Hey, how was dinner?" She barely glanced at me, dropping her purse on the counter. "Fine. We just caught up on stuff, nothing crazy." I wanted to throw Lisa's text in her face right then and there. I wanted to see her scramble for an excuse. But something in me told me to wait. If she was lying about one thing, she was probably lying about a lot more. And if I wanted the whole truth, I needed to be smart. So I started paying attention. Over the next week, I became an investigator in my own home. I watched her behavior. The way she constantly checked her phone with this little smirk. The way she guarded that thing like it held nuclear codes. The way she started casually mentioning a new coworker, a guy named Jake, just enough to plant the idea that he existed, but not enough to make it seem like he mattered. But the biggest clue. The night she accidentally left her Apple Watch at home. Sarah never left without that thing. She was obsessed with tracking her steps, heart rate, all that stuff. So when I saw it sitting on the nightstand after she had already left for her girls' night out, my curiosity got the best of me. I picked it up. The screen lit up. And there it was. A text notification. From Jake. Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was amazing. My entire body went cold. My hands started shaking. There it was. The proof I needed. Sarah wasn't just lying. She was cheating. And suddenly, all those months of doubt, of second-guessing myself, of trying to be the reasonable husband, they all shattered in an instant. I had my answer. Now, I just had to decide what to do with it. I stared at that message on her Apple Watch for what felt like forever. My hands were shaking, my mind racing, but one thing was crystal clear: Sarah wasn't just sneaking around. She was fully invested in this. Last night was amazing. That meant this wasn't a one-time mistake. This wasn't some drunken lapse in judgment. This was an affair. A full-blown, ongoing, calculated betrayal. I sat down on the edge of the bed, heart pounding so hard it felt like it was trying to escape my chest. Part of me wanted to throw the damn watch against the wall, to smash it into pieces, to yell and scream and demand answers right then and there. But I knew that if I lost control now, she'd just lie. Again. She'd twist things, gaslight me, make me feel crazy. No. I needed to be smart. I took a deep breath, placed the watch back exactly where I found it, and made a plan. The first thing I did was take a picture of the message with my phone. If she tried to delete it later, I'd have proof. Then I sat down and thought about my next move. Should I confront her the second she walked in the door? Should I wait and gather more evidence? Should I call her out in front of Jake and really watch her squirm? I had no idea. But one thing was certain: I wasn't going to sit around and let her keep making a fool out of me. That night, I pretended everything was normal. When she came home, I asked about her girls' night out. She gave me the same half-hearted, dismissive answers, barely looking up from her phone. I wanted to laugh. The audacity. The nerve of this woman. But I kept my cool. Because if she thought she was in control, she was dead wrong. The game had changed. And now? Now I was playing to win. That night, I barely slept. My mind was racing, replaying every little moment, every lie, every excuse. I had my proof, but what I needed now was the perfect way to end this. I wasn't just going to call her out, I was going to make sure she couldn't slither her way out of it with more lies. The next morning, I played it cool. I kissed her on the cheek before she left for work, just like I always did. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like she wasn't sneaking around behind my back. And that just fueled me even more. I called in sick to work. Then I started digging. First, I checked our phone records. I had never been the type to snoop. I trusted my wife, or at least I used to, but now? Now I needed the truth. And what I found. It made my stomach turn. Hundreds of texts and calls to one number. Jake's number. Late at night. Early in the morning. During the times she was supposedly too busy to talk to me. But that wasn't even the worst part. I checked our bank statements next. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through them, and sure enough, there it was: charges from fancy restaurants, hotel bookings, and random little things she'd never mentioned. She was spending our money on this guy. That's when something inside me snapped. I wasn't just going to confront her, I was going to catch her. So I set up a little trap. I sent her a text saying I had to work late that night and wouldn't be home until after midnight. She replied with a simple okay, love you. Love me. Love me. She didn't love me. She loved sneaking around. She loved the thrill. I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and got ready. Because if I knew my wife, I knew exactly what she was going to do next. And I was going to be there to see it with my own eyes. I knew Sarah better than she thought I did. She was predictable, almost too predictable. The second I told her I'd be working late, I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. This was her chance. And I was going to catch her red-handed. I left the house in the early evening, making a big show of grabbing my work bag and acting rushed. I even sent her a text after I pulled out of the driveway. Long night ahead. Don't wait up. She responded almost immediately, oh, that sucks. Be safe. Love you. Fake. So damn fake. Instead of going to work, I parked a few blocks away and waited. My hands were clenched around the steering wheel, my pulse hammering. I wasn't just angry, I was done. Done being lied to, done playing the clueless husband. Less than an hour later, she made her move. I saw our garage door open. Then, her car pulled out, and I swear, she sped out of the driveway like a damn teenager sneaking out past curfew. I tailed her, staying a few cars back, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. She drove straight to a hotel. Not a restaurant. Not a bar. A hotel. I sat there in the parking lot, watching as she climbed out of the car, adjusting her dress and fixing her hair like she was about to walk into a date, not a betrayal. And then? Jake. The guy I'd only ever heard about in passing, the one she'd mentioned so casually it almost felt planned. He was waiting for her outside the entrance, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. And the way she smiled back at him. I hadn't seen her look at me like that in years. My vision blurred with rage. My hands clenched into fists. Every fiber of my being wanted to storm out, punch that smug grin off his face, and throw her lying ass out of my life right there in the hotel lobby. But I held back. Because I wanted proof. So I pulled out my phone, turned on the camera, and hit record. If she thought she could gaslight me out of this one, she had another thing coming. Sitting there in my car, watching my wife practically glow in front of another man, was the most surreal moment of my life. It was like watching a scene from a movie, except this was my life, and the woman I had loved for 6 years was the main character in a story I never wanted to be in. I kept recording. She walked up to Jake, and without hesitation, he pulled her in and kissed her. Right there, in the open, like they didn't have a care in the world. Like she didn't have a husband at home who had trusted her. I gripped my phone so hard I thought I might break it. My breathing was heavy, uneven. A part of me had been hoping, as stupid as it sounds, that I had been wrong. That maybe I was overreacting. But there was no denying it now. This wasn't some harmless flirtation. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal. I kept the camera rolling as they walked into the hotel together, hand in hand. Sarah didn't even look around. She wasn't worried about being seen. She was confident. Comfortable. Like she had done this a dozen times before. And maybe she had. I let out a slow breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I had the proof. I had the texts. The phone logs. The hotel charges. And now? Now I had video footage of her walking into a hotel with another man. There was no talking her way out of this. But I wasn't done yet. Because I had one last move to make. I sat in my car for a few minutes, gripping my phone like it was the only thing holding me together. The proof was all there. The texts. The calls. The credit card statements. And now? A video of my wife walking into a hotel with another man. I could have stormed in right then and there. I could have blown up her entire world in the middle of that lobby. But no, that would be too easy for her. She didn't deserve an explosive confrontation. She deserved something worse. She deserved to be caught in her own lies. So I drove home. I needed to be calm for this. Collected. I needed to set the trap perfectly. Once I got inside, I grabbed a beer, sat down on the couch, and waited. The hours dragged by. Every time I thought about what she was doing in that hotel room, my stomach twisted in knots. But I reminded myself, this ends tonight. A little after midnight, the front door finally opened. I stayed where I was, pretending to be half asleep, my beer still in my hand. Sarah walked in quietly, like she was trying not to wake me. I watched her from the corner of my eye. Her makeup was smudged, her hair slightly messy, and there was this energy about her, like she was still high from whatever the hell had just happened. I took a deep breath. Showtime. I stretched, rubbing my eyes like I had just woken up. Hey, I mumbled, playing it cool. You're home late. She barely looked at me. Yeah, we had a few drinks. Lisa and the girls kept dragging me to different bars. I almost laughed. Lisa and the girls. The same Lisa who had no idea she was supposed to be my wife's alibi. Sounds fun, I said, tilting my head. How's Lisa, by the way? Sarah dropped her purse on the counter and yawned. Good. Same as always. Oh, she was good. She had no hesitation. No guilt in her voice. Just effortless, confident lying. Yeah? I took a sip of my beer and pulled out my phone. That's weird. Because I texted Lisa earlier and she said she hasn't seen you in weeks. Silence. For the first time, her body froze. I could see the moment her brain short-circuited. She turned to face me, forcing a confused laugh. Wait, what? That's crazy. She must have misunderstood. I didn't let her finish. I tapped my phone screen and flipped it toward her. The video started playing. Her? Jake. The hotel. She watched in horror as she saw herself, clear as day, giggling as she walked inside with her little boyfriend. I looked her dead in the eyes. You want to try that lie again? For a moment, Sarah just stood there, staring at my phone screen like it was a ticking time bomb. The color drained from her face, her lips slightly parted, her brain scrambling for an escape route. Then, just like clockwork, she tried. This isn't what it looks like. I actually laughed. I laughed in her face. I couldn't help it. After all the lying, all the gaslighting, all the little eye rolls and dismissive comments, this was her excuse. Oh really? I leaned back, folding my arms. Because it looks like my wife walking into a hotel with another man after telling me she was out with her friends. So go ahead, Sarah. What's the alternative explanation? I'm dying to hear it. She blinked rapidly, still trying to collect herself. It's not, okay, listen. He's just a friend. I was comforting him. He's going through a lot. I held up a hand. Stop. She clamped her mouth shut. Sarah, don't insult my intelligence. I have the texts. The phone calls. The bank charges. And now I have video proof. You are not talking your way out of this. Her eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape, for a way to spin this in her favor. But she had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Then the anger kicked in. I can't believe you spied on me. She snapped, crossing her arms like she was the victim. That's so messed up. You were stalking me, recording me like some crazy person? Do you even hear yourself? I shook my head, letting out a sharp breath. Are you seriously trying to flip this on me right now? You got caught, Sarah. That's what's happening here. And instead of owning up to it, you're pulling the I can't believe you were watching me card. Because it's creepy. She fired back. I shouldn't have to justify who I spend time with. You're married, Sarah. I snapped, my voice rising. You don't get to spend time in a hotel room with another guy and pretend like it's normal. That's not a friendship, that's an affair. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Nothing real, anyway. Because the lies, the excuses, the manipulations, they were crumbling. The silence that followed my outburst was thick, suffocating. Sarah just stood there, her eyes darting back and forth, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. I could see the wheels turning in her head, but for once, she was out of lies. Finally, she let out a frustrated sigh and threw her hands up. Fine. You want the truth? Here it is. Yes, I've been seeing Jake. Are you happy now? Happy. That word hit me like a slap in the face. Happy. Did she really think her confession would bring me some kind of satisfaction? No, Sarah, I said, my voice low and steady. I'm not happy. But I'm glad you finally decided to stop lying. She rolled her eyes, like she was the one inconvenienced. It's not like you've been perfect, you know. Our marriage has been dead for a while now. We don't even talk anymore. I blinked, stunned at her audacity. Dead? Sarah, the only thing killing this marriage is you sneaking around with some guy behind my back. We could have talked about our issues. We could have tried to fix things. But instead, you chose to lie, to cheat, and to make me feel like I was going crazy. She scoffed. Oh, come on. You're not exactly innocent here. You've been distant, boring, stuck in your routines. Jake made me feel alive again. That hit me hard. So this was my fault now? Boring? I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. Sarah, I wasn't the one running off to hotels while pretending to be out with friends. I was here. I was committed. I was trying to make this work, and you couldn't even give me the decency of a conversation. What was I supposed to do? She shot back. Wait around while you ignored me. While you got lost in your own world. I needed more than that. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You needed more, huh? And instead of telling me that, you just jumped into someone else's bed. Real mature. She glared at me, crossing her arms defensively. You're never going to understand. You don't even know me anymore. Maybe I don't, I said, feeling a hollow emptiness in my chest. Because the woman I thought I married wouldn't do this. She wouldn't lie, sneak around, and then try to blame me when she got caught. She looked away, her jaw clenched. For the first time, it felt like the truth was laid bare between us, ugly, messy, and impossible to deny. And suddenly, I realized something important. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about who she had become. And maybe, who we had become together. Sarah stood there, arms crossed, eyes full of defiance. Even now, after being caught red-handed, after every lie had crumbled around her, she still refused to take full responsibility. It wasn't shame I saw in her face, it was annoyance. Like I was the one ruining her life. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't sorry. Not for the lies. Not for the betrayal. Not for how she made me feel like a paranoid, overthinking idiot these past few months. She was just sorry she got caught. That realization cut deeper than anything else. Because for a long time, I had held onto this hope, the hope that maybe, just maybe, this was a mistake she regretted. That maybe she was trapped in something she didn't know how to get out of. That maybe she still cared. But no. Sarah had already moved on. She just hadn't told me yet. I let out a long breath, the last bit of fight leaving my body. You know what, Sarah? I get it now. I finally see you for who you are. Her eyes narrowed. Oh, and who am I, exactly? Someone who doesn't respect me. Someone who was willing to throw away everything we built together for a cheap thrill. Someone who, instead of talking to her husband, decided to run off with some random guy and pretend it was justified. Her expression flickered, just for a second. But she recovered quickly, rolling her eyes. Oh, please. Spare me the speech. That response told me everything I needed to know. She didn't care. She really, truly didn't care. I nodded slowly, as if processing the final puzzle piece clicking into place. Okay. Got it. She eyed me warily. Got what? That I'm done, I said simply. Her face twitched. Not in sadness, not in regret, but in shock. Like she never actually considered that I might be the one to walk away first. You're done. She repeated, her voice tight. Yeah, Sarah, I said, finally feeling a strange sense of peace wash over me. You checked out of this marriage a long time ago. I was just too blind to see it. But I see it now. And I'm done wasting my time on someone who doesn't respect me. For the first time, I saw something flicker behind her eyes. Not love. Not remorse. But panic. Because now she was losing control of the situation. For the first time since this whole thing started, Sarah looked nervous. She had spent the entire confrontation rolling her eyes, scoffing, making excuses, and trying to twist things around on me. But now that I had said the words, I'm done, she finally realized she had no control left. Wait, hold on, she said, her tone shifting. It wasn't angry anymore. It was hesitant. Let's not make any rash decisions, okay? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Rash? Sarah, you've been sneaking around for months. I don't think there's anything rash about me deciding I don't want to be married to a liar. She took a step forward, her voice softening. Look, I know I messed up, but can we just talk about this? Like, really talk. Oh, now she wanted to talk. Now, when her entire affair had been dragged into the light, when she had no other way to manipulate the situation. I shook my head. No, Sarah. You had plenty of chances to talk. When you started feeling bored in our marriage, you could have come to me. When you started texting Jake, you could have stopped yourself. When I confronted you about your weird behavior, you could have been honest instead of lying to my face. But you didn't. And now, the only reason you want to talk is because you're scared of what happens next. Her eyes flashed with something, anger, frustration, maybe even guilt. But she buried it quickly. I just don't think we should throw away 6 years over a mistake, she said, crossing her arms. A mistake? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is saying something hurtful in an argument. A mistake is not carrying on a months-long affair and lying about it every step of the way. She let out a sharp breath. So that's it? You're just done. Just like that. No, I said, staring her dead in the eyes. You were done the moment you chose him over me. She flinched. Just a little. But I was already past the point of caring. Because I wasn't the one throwing away this marriage. She had done that all on her own. Sarah stood there, shifting her weight from foot to foot, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. I could see it in her eyes, she was scrambling, trying to figure out how to flip this back in her favor. But she couldn't. Not this time. So what now? She asked, her voice clipped. I shrugged. I think that's pretty obvious. I'm filing for divorce. Her face twisted. Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. I laughed. Actually laughed. Dramatic? Sarah, I caught you sneaking into a hotel with another man after months of lying to me. And now, because you don't like the consequences, I'm the one being dramatic. She groaned, rubbing her temples like I was the one giving her a headache. I just think we should take some time to figure this out before making a permanent decision. You already made the permanent decision when you chose him over me, I said flatly. Her eyes darkened. You're being impossible right now. No, Sarah. I was stupid before. I let you manipulate me, gaslight me, make me feel like I was crazy for suspecting something was wrong. But I'm not stupid anymore. She stared at me, her jaw tight. So that's it? You're just walking away? You walked away first. I'm just catching up. For the first time since this all started, I saw real panic in her eyes. Not because she loved me. Not because she regretted what she did. But because she was losing control. She thought she'd get away with it. That she could play her little game and still keep her comfortable life. But now? Now she realized she had gambled and lost. I took a deep breath, stood up, and grabbed my car keys. I'll be staying somewhere else tonight. Pack your things. We're done. She didn't respond. She just stood there, watching as I walked out the door. And for the first time in months, I felt free. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. Not once. Not even when I heard Sarah call my name as I shut the door behind me. I wasn't interested in hearing whatever last-minute excuse she had left. I wasn't interested in watching her scramble to hold onto a marriage she had already destroyed. I got in my car, took a deep breath, and just sat there for a moment. Letting it sink in. I was done. It was over. And you know what? It didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the months of her treating me like I was crazy, like I was the problem. But sitting there in my car, all I felt was relief. I drove to my brother's place, called him on the way, and told him what had happened. He swore loud enough to make me pull the phone away from my ear. Then, after a pause, he simply said, "About damn time, man." And yeah. He was right. It was about damn time. I crashed on his couch that night. Slept like a rock for the first time in months. Woke up feeling lighter than I had in years. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. And just like that, I started the process of walking away for good. Sarah tried to call me. A lot. First with fake apologies. Then with excuses. Then with anger, because she didn't like that I wasn't responding. I didn't answer. Because she wasn't my problem anymore. The divorce process was a mess, not because I made it that way, but because Sarah did. At first, she tried the "I'm so sorry, I made a mistake, please let's fix this" approach. I ignored it. Then she switched to anger, blaming me for not fighting for the marriage, for giving up so easily. I wasn't playing her games anymore. I kept my responses short. Civil. I let my lawyer handle the hard parts. And every time she tried to drag me into an emotional argument, I shut it down. Because that's what she wanted, to make me second-guess myself, to wear me down, to see if she could still control me. She couldn't. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just another man she had screwed over. A few weeks in, I got a text from an unknown number. Jake. Yeah. That Jake. The guy she threw our marriage away for. His message? "Hey man, I know this is awkward, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry for everything. I had no idea she was married at first, and when I found out, she told me you guys were basically done. I'm sorry." I stared at the message for a while. Not because I was mad, I was past that. But because I finally understood just how much of a liar Sarah really was. I didn't respond. What was the point? If he was dumb enough to stay with her after everything, that was his problem now. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already started moving on. I found my own place. I reconnected with friends. I went back to the gym, picked up old hobbies I had neglected, and realized just how much of myself I had lost trying to make that marriage work. And you know what? I was better off without her. Sarah tried to reach out one last time, sent me a long email about how she regretted everything, how she missed me, how she thought we could find our way back to each other someday. I deleted it without reading past the first few lines. Because I had already found my way back. And it had nothing to do with her. If there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's this. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. I spent months doubting myself. Ignoring red flags. letting her manipulate me into thinking I was just paranoid. But the truth was there the whole time. And once I finally saw it, I never looked back. To anyone reading this who might be going through something similar, trust your gut. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Don't let yourself be gaslit into thinking you're crazy. Because sometimes, the only way to win is to walk away. And damn, does it feel good to finally be free.